Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Sanders and Ranking Member, and welcome to the committee. It's good to see you both again. So I want to talk a bit about food safety. One of the most important things that we do for Americans is to make sure that the food we eat is safe and won't make us sick. This is a basic function of government, right? And I think it's also something that's a bipartisan, nonpartisan issue. But so here's the thing, of course, the work of making sure that the food supply is safe, that often happens at the state level by state employees who are doing the inspecting. And in Minnesota, that's the food inspectors at the Department of Agriculture who conduct over 13,000 inspections a year. So how do we pay for that in Minnesota? Well, the FDA helps, right? Because tax dollars are sent back to Minnesota and all our states to help pay for these inspectors. So here's the challenge. Minnesota's Commissioner of Agriculture, Tom Peterson, wrote me last month raising concerns about proposed FDA cuts to state and local food safety programs. And I've been told that this is going to be a big deal for Minnesota, and I'm sure Minnesota is not alone. So, Dr. Califf, I hear what you're saying, that if Congress doesn't provide adequate funding, then you can't do your job, and the Minnesota Department of Agriculture can't do its job, and Americans' health and safety can suffer. I want to note that in a strong bipartisan showing of agreement, both the House and the Senate appropriations bills for next year's funding fund food safety inspections so that no cuts would be necessary. And of course, those appropriations bills haven't passed. That's a worry to many of us. And at the same time, we've got Elon Musk and the incoming Trump administration saying that they think that they can find $2 trillion in cuts from the budget, which would probably start with non-discretionary funding like at the FDA. So, Dr. Califf, could you just comment on this? Is there anything the FDA can do about this at this point? And what do you think we should be thinking about in Congress as we think about making sure that we have the money to do the food safety inspections we need to?
All right, I'm going to try to quickly rattle off 5 or 6 key points, and Mr. Jones may want to correct anything that I say. We've talked about this a little bit. Because we're not able to fill all the inspectorate jobs, you all had allocated, I think it's $83 million a year to us to go to the states for what you described. And we completely agree that this interaction of state inspectors and federal inspectors is critical to the safety of our food supply. But because we weren't filling all the inspectorate jobs, we had money left over that we thought was best used to go to the states. We're now hiring the inspectors, and in the reorganization of the Human Foods Program, one of the most important aspects of that is to make it clear to you all exactly what the money is being spent on. In my job as commissioner, the medical product side is a lot easier that way because of the user fees. It's very much like running a business. The food side has been more like there's a lot of money, and we try to do the best we can. Now it's organized in a way where you're able to see it. And so if we're going to have enough of our inspectors, how much can go to the states? The solution to it would be to decide what the right amount is. There are other elements of this. Right now, we can't exchange information with the states. And this is where we need a law to make it possible, because our liability of disclosing commercial confidential information is different than the states. Fortunately, now with a single leader of the program, this allocation of money, I think, can be done more rationally. You may want to correct anything I said there.
No, I think that's well stated. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think my general point is that if we want to have safe food in this country that doesn't make people sick, then we need to make sure that we're keeping track of the inspections we need to do. But you raise another point that I want to touch on briefly, which is that, I think it would be a surprise to a lot of Americans that if the FDA has information through a voluntary recall about a product out there that's been contaminated, let's take, for example, the applesauce contaminated with chromium and lead, that you're barred from sharing that information. And that, Minnesota Department of Agriculture tells me that they were forced to file a Freedom of Information request to get the information about the sources of lead poisoning when they're also responsible for trying to get these products off the shelves. So this is something I'm sure you know. I've been working on a bill that would get at this, that would allow the FDA to share this information with states and tribes and other local governments.
Please hurry up. I also want to point out, this is not just about food inspections. And again, I'll be leaving January 20th, so I can
This
say
this
what
is
I
your
want to say.
chance to speak truth to the somewhat powerful.
I think commercial confidential information in the U.S. is also one of the keys to the problems we have with supply chains. There is no reason on earth that I know of why companies should be able to hide information.
Who are we protecting when they are protected from?
I was on a National Academies of Medicine committee right before I was nominated, as you may remember, for the second time. We had the industries in. They could not explain to us any good reason. And other industries came in and said, you know, and we're auto parts, everybody knows exactly where the supplies are coming from. We don't have that. And every time we go to you all to try to get a law passed, something happens that Senator Sanders may have referred to, and somehow it doesn't get into the law. So I'm really appealing to you to look carefully at what's called commercial confidential, and particularly as it relates to supply chains and inspections
Yep.
as two areas where it would help a lot.
Thank you very much.